We are here to talk about 401ks and the CARES Act. And before we get too far, I want to do two things. First, I want to give a little disclaimer, and Michael Freeman, who is our guest today, may also want to pipe up with a disclaimer, but mine may cover you, so we'll see. And the other thing I want to do is introduce Michael. So first, the disclaimer. Nothing on here that we are doing is giving advice. We are simply sharing information that we know to be true at this particular moment. The CARES Act and everything surrounding it changes on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. My team currently laughs every 3 days when the SBA and the Treasury put out interim final guidance every 3 days. So just realize that we are not giving advice. We are just giving opinion and knowledge and fact. If you have more questions, you can contact either one of us. Michael will absolutely give you his email address. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that I missed you're not an attorney, so I don't have to say this does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. All right, so let me introduce Michael. This is Michael Freeman. He is the managing director at Fidelity's Workplace Investing. So what he does is he works with 401k plans to assist plan sponsors with their fiduciary responsibilities and front the support groups designed to assist plans in every aspect of operations. So, Michael, thank you for coming. I would love to kind of
You're welcome.
A little bit of an agenda today. All right, so we do this every Tuesday. We have somebody on, and a lot of times it's sparked by something that we kind of hear that we don't know about. And so as we were talking as a team, one of our team members, who happens to be married to Michael, full disclosure, Claire was like, did you know you could take money out of your 401k? And I'm like, no, I didn't. She's like, you may need to talk to Michael about this. So I had no idea. I've read the CARES Act, but I read it, really with an eye to looking at what kind of, I felt like applied to me. And the 401k thing I just skipped over because I didn't even think about it, but you haven't. So you want to talk a little bit about our options?
Absolutely. Well, the CARES Act is a big piece of legislation, as you're well aware. The portion of it that addresses the 401 is what I'll touch base with now. It has multi-facets to it. The three big tools that the CARES Act provides to plan participants, should a plan sponsor elect to utilize them, really are pretty straightforward. Keep in mind that if a plan sponsor chooses to offer these options, a participant has to self-certify their financial need based on the rules of the CARES Act.
Okay, hold on. Wait, Michael,
yeah.
Before we go any further, because a lot of times we have people that don't know terminology, and I don't want to go all the way through this. So a plan sponsor is generally the company, right? That has the 401k?
The company.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And the participant are the employees that put money in, right?
Correct.
With the exception.
So I apologize.
Right? Because the company,
I'm sorry?
Well, the company owner is the exception, because the company owner is usually the one person who has the fiduciary responsibility as the plan sponsor, plus they can be a participant, correct?
Yes, but there are some caveats to that. So a plan sponsor can actually, well, let me rephrase that. A fiduciary on a plan can actually be many people.
Okay.
So you have somebody in your payroll department that posts contributions or loan payments to a 401, they are part of the fiduciary responsibilities. Although the plan sponsor and the named fiduciary is the primary responsibility holder there are others that are also caught up in there. So
That are also
it's
on
not
the-
just the owner of the company necessarily.
Okay. All right. But for our purposes, the plan sponsor is the company and the participants are any employees and or the owner, anyone who actually participates in the 401k plan.
Correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
All right. Go forward.
Okay. So the CARES Act is regarding the 401 is designed to provide access to funds for participants who have experienced financial hardship due to this coronavirus pandemic. There are some basic rules that the plan states that one, that you or your spouse or a immediate household member has been diagnosed with the disease or with the virus, or that you have experienced direct financial hardship. And there's some gray area on that direct financial hardship, but there are some that feel that if you as the employee have not experienced a layoff or a furlough, then you don't get to do that. There are some that believe if you have a spouse who has experienced that, then you have the ability to claim that hardship, that financial hardship.
So some people are looking household and some people are looking at the individual.
Correct.
Okay.
So to take advantage of this, if a plan sponsor opts into these options, and again, they are optional for a plan, there are three main areas, and I call them phases. The first is called distributions, and a CARES Act distribution basically does away with temporarily the rules around withdrawals from a 401, especially if you're below the age 59 and a half. So it gives every participant the ability to withdraw without penalty up to 100% of their vested value, up to $100,000.
Okay, so the penalty is usually 10%, right?
It is a 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And also most 401ks, we're putting pre-tax money in, right? So when it comes out, it gets taxed. So we're not going to have that 10% penalty, but it sounds like we're still going to have that tax.
You are, and with the CARES Act, you can defer that taxation until April. With the CARES Act distribution, the law gives the ability to spread that liability out over 3 tax periods over the next 3 years.
Okay, so it's a max of the amount you have invested, or 150,000, right?
100,000.
100,000, and we have 3 years to pay off the tax that we're going to incur, which will be anywhere from 17,000 to what, 42,000, 37,000, somewhere, depending on the tax bracket. And
so you'll get,
divide that by 3 and pay it off over 3 years.
so you will have, keep in mind that this would come in as a distribution, so it's earned income to you if you take that withdrawal. So on top of other earnings that you have, so if I take $100,000 out and I'm already making $100,000 per year in my work, I'm now going to have, on average, $130,000 of income for the next 3 periods, provided my income stays the same. Right? Okay. So it is additional income over what you earn.
That is really interesting. So it's not that you have 3 years to pay the tax. It's that they literally divide up the distribution over 3 years.
Well, no, the distribution can be taken immediately.
Right, the
So
distribution
you can get,
immediately, but only a third of it shows up as taxable income per year. It's not that 100% shows up in this year and we have a payment plan to pay it. So it was really designed for people who, like you said, have financial hardship. So maybe their income went down from 100,000 to 50,000, and they took, let's say, 50,000 out to kind of make up for that.
mhm.
So they're not going to see a big change in their tax bracket. But if you're already making 100 and you think you need the cash because you're facing a financial hardship, and you and I kind of touched on this a little bit yesterday, that most of the people in my network that are probably watching this are business owners that are facing the financial hardship in their business. So they're probably going to want to pull it out and then loan it to their company. So their income may go up drastically into a whole different tax bracket.
Correct. As with any withdrawal from a 401, that is something that I or any retirement consultant would make sure that you're aware of. That
Really?
this is,
Come on, you have to do the danger, Will Robinson, danger.
well, you know, some people assume that you know that, but as a retirement consultant, you're going to, you know, I would tell you, if you take this withdrawal, you need to be aware of the taxable implication here.
So it's a good idea to talk to your accountant as you're doing this to make sure that you're going to be financially able to pay that tax.
Correct.
Yeah, because we're believers in not being drunken sailors with this money. And there's a whole lot of money flowing into people's accounts right now. And they're like, I have the money, I can go do this. And I really think that, you know, people need to think about the tax implications, and that you're going to have to pay $17,000 to $35,000 if you take $100,000 out. So you need to be sequestering that and be ready to pay it.
True, and I think that's a great point. The other aspect of that too is, again, being a retirement consultant, I would say also to make sure that there is that dire need. I'm always one from a retirement consultant standpoint to say, I don't like folks taking money out of their 401 or taking a loan on their 401 unless it's absolutely necessary, because that really has a detrimental effect on your retirement account. Yes, you may pay it back, but depending on what you're doing, there's a good chance that you'll never make that up.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much you can put in after the fact.
So with the CARES Act, there are a whole bunch of things that kind of have, I don't know, internally we're calling it the no harm, no foul provision, right? And that usually is if you repay it by the end of the year, no harm, no foul. Is that the same thing? If you take a distribution, can you put it back in before the end of the year and not have any tax consequence?
So yes, in a way, the CARES Act provides that you can take the money out that you have certified as a financial need, that you can put that money back into a qualified account, either your 401 or an IRA, and not pay the taxes on it. Now, you have 3 years on a CARES Act distribution to do that. So you may pay taxes on it in year 1, but if you were to be able to put all that money back into a qualified plan, again, 401 or an IRA, you would be able to get a credit back on that amount you've already paid and not pay taxes on the original amount in the future for those next 2 years.
Okay. Well,
So it does give you the option.
Well, that's great to know, because
I'm sorry.
Well, there are a lot of people that are concerned because, you know, they don't know what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So you could take this loan, which I know you don't recommend. We're just, talking what ifs here. If you are anticipating things are going to go south and you're going to be out of money soon, you could take this loan, and if you manage to pull it out and not need it, you can pay it back anytime over the next 3 years. You'll lose. I totally get it. I got my CFA. I understand you're going to lose the growth that it would have gotten in the market. But okay, all right, awesome. So we can just take a distribution.
And I want to, yeah. And you mentioned a loan, and there is another provision in this rule, in this law about loans, and I'll actually two of them, and I'll touch base on those next. A couple of things to think about in regards to the distribution. You don't have to take it all at once. So this process goes through the end of the year. So if you needed a little bit of that cash now, but didn't need all of that 100,000, you could take a little bit now, take a little bit later on. That is something that I've worked with participants over the years to say, hey, how much do you need now, or how much do you need over the next 90 days? And then let's look at that. If you need more, come back and get it later. The taxation will be the same. There won't be any effect from a tax standpoint, but you're going to take less out up front and only take it out as you need it. So there's no limit on how many CARES Act distributions you take through the end of
just the total amount. Okay, so that is great advice, because I think with everything around the CARES Act, everyone has been so panicked about money running out and not being able to get it. But this is your money. The government's not going to give it to anybody else.
Exactly.
This is not a first come, first served situation. And I'm guessing you can get the money out pretty fast, 3-4 days, a week.
Well, at Fidelity, if you have your bank account set up on your account, it can be overnighted. It'll be there in the next day.
Oh, awesome.
So this is a very fast process. We've fast tracked, at least our company has fast tracked that process to make sure that you can get those funds quickly. If you need it if you don't have that set up and you need it in a check, then it would take a couple of days, but we can still overnight a check. I encourage the setting up your bank account, doing the ACH aspect of it, because it eliminates a lot of headaches or potential headaches with the mail or check handling, even within the company, or whatever the case may be, and then you having to go get it deposited in your bank. So I like the ACH, setting up your check, the electronic funds transfer process, and we have fast tracked that through on our end, so it's very easy to get set up. If you have your account, your 401 at Fidelity, for example, then that would be something that I would encourage. So that is, from a distribution standpoint, those are kind of the basic points on the distribution.
Can I ask one more distribution question?
Sure.
So you can take a distribution from a 401k. Can you take a distribution from an IRA?
You certainly can. You certainly can. Now, keep in mind, the IRS is going to track this. So the non-penalized amount of $100,000 is spread out over any qualified account. So if you have a 401 and an IRA, it's a combination of those two accounts, can only go up to $100,000. Any amounts over that are going to will create the early distribution penalty of that 10%.
Yep. All right.
So keep in mind, and institutions may not have the ability to track that. If you've got an IRA at one place and a 401 at another place, neither institution will be able to track that and warn you, other than to say, hey, understand your limit is 100,000 or 100% of your vested interest.
All right.
And keep in mind that the CARES Act, all of these options go through, with the exception of the loans, which I'll get into in a moment, go through December 30th of this year.
Okay.
Or must be processed by December 30th. That time frame may be extended by Congress, but as it is right now, December 30th is the deadline for that. So the second phase is what we call the loan deferment phase. So if you have an existing loan out against your 401, The CARES Act gives you the option for any payments that were due from March 27th, which when roughly the day after the law was passed, through the end of this year, you can defer your loan payments up until the end of this year. And so that can make a big difference for a lot of folks, a lot of participants who have taken a loan. This is something that can really put a little bit of cash back in their accounts in this time of need.
All right.
At the end of December.
Sorry, and you may be about to say this. A deferment does not mean you never have to pay it back, right? They just take those 6-8 months of payments and they tack them on to the end of the loan, right? Okay.
Correct. So 401k loans have certain limitations to them. And again, I'm not referring to some plans have a principal residence loan, and I'm not referring to that, but the standard loan on a 401k has a maximum amount of $50,000 or 50% of the vested balance within the 401. So the loan also has a 5-year term, 60-month term. And so those are standard by the rules of the 401. A home loan, a new home loan extends that a little bit. So the deferral of a existing loan will be reamortized in January because interest will still be accruing on that loan. Even though you've deferred payments, the interest will still accrue. So in January, those loans will be reamortized with that interest and the additional time for the amount of the deferral tacked on to the end of the term. So you'll still be making the same number of payments after that. So I think it's a great option should somebody be in difficult, having financial hardship, to be able to say, you know what, I just want to, we'll stop that loan payment.
Pay that right.
With Fidelity, and I can't speak to other 401k record keepers, but with Fidelity, in both the distribution and the loan deferral, the participant has to request that. So this is not just something that the plan does automatically. The participant has to request the deferral. It is automatically granted based on their self-certification, but they do have to request it. So they can do that, with Fidelity, they can do it online, or they can give us a call to our participant services group, which I assume is similar with other 401s.
Yeah, that's if you have a loan, an existing loan. Can you get a loan with the CARES Act?
Yes, you can. So the third phase of the CARES Act is what is called the CARES Act loans. If a plan chooses to offer that, it adds another loan to their lineup. Or if they don't have loans, if they don't offer loans now, then they would have to go through a process of amending their plan documents to be able to offer loans. But a high number of plans high percentage of plans do offer at least some level of loans. So this would add another loan to the plan. The loan gives the participant the ability to take up to $100,000 or 100% of their vested value. So if you recall, I mentioned just a moment ago, the standard 401k loans are $50,000 or 50% of vested balance. The CARES Act expands that to $100,000 or 100% of vested balance up to that $100,000.
Does it extend the time? Because you said the existing 401k loans are 5 years, so 60 months. Do you have the same payback period, or do you get a longer payback period?
This is the same payback period. This is going to be the same 5 years. And when we were talking yesterday, I may have misspoke on one thing. The deferral, there is a deferral on this loan, but this deferral is only good through December 31st also.
All right, so you can take this loan and your first payment will be due in January. Interest will accrue, but your first payment is due in January.
Correct. Correct. So there is some time factors regarding the loans. The CARES Act basically states that within the loans, you have to have that loan request processed and the monies distributed by September 23rd. So there's really only a short window on the actual loan, CARES Act loan process.
All right, so the loan, we have until September 23rd, which seems like a totally arbitrary number, but I'm sure there's a reason, whatever. And on the distributions, it's December 30th. Don't call anybody on New Year's Eve.
Mhm.
Got it. All right. So you talked a few minutes ago, you said that not all plans have the ability to make loans, and that you can go back and rewrite the plan docs and give people the ability to take loans. Is that hard to do? How long does it take? Is it expensive? How does one do that? And this is for the plan administrator, for the company would be the one to make this decision.
Correct. So if a plan is not offering a loan now, they would contact their 401 record keeper. In this case, my plans would contact me, and we would create an amendment to the plan document, the basic plan document. And that amendment, different companies do it differently. Fidelity's typically takes about 30 days to get that process through. There also has to be, in some cases, participant notification, where the plan does have to notify the participants of this new option. And so that is basically a 30-day notification.
All right, so if you don't currently offer loans and you think you want to offer loans, you needed to have started this paperwork yesterday. If your people are running into hardships, it's already what, May 17th, 18th, something like that. Who knows what day of the week it is? I mean, we're already mid-May and you only have until mid-September. So, and if you've got a 30-day notification period, 30-day plan doc change, amendment period, hopefully we can stack those on top of each other and they're not one after the other.
Well, no, the 30-day notification is at the same time. So if we're going to create an amendment, at least again, I'm speaking from the Fidelity record keeping process.
Yeah.
There's and to be honest with you, the notification is optional.
Right.
Most plan sponsors will send out a notification when they make changes to the plan.
Well,
there are some that are not required, but it is. I have not found a plan that doesn't feel it's beneficial to not tell the participants of those changes.
well, in most cases, you're probably doing this for employees who, you know, you've reduced hours, you've reduced pay, your company has probably created the financial hardship, because what's happening in the world has created financial hardship for your company. Or you know that a lot of people who work for you have spouses who have been significantly impacted. So you want to be able for them to be able to take these loans. So you need to get on this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, the law was passed, in that third week of March, really almost in the fourth week of March. We have rolled, again, I'm speaking again, Fidelity, other record keepers do things a little bit differently, but in the distribution process, that's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. In the loan deferment process, again, very straightforward, very easy to handle. The loan, creating a new loan does take a little more time because of the aspect of the current plan document. Now, since I mentioned plan document, those other two areas will require changes to the plan document too. But
Okay.
the law gives us a deadline of the end of 2021, prior, basically the start of the year following, to amend the plan documents for those other options. Or if you have a loan options already, then it's retroactive. We will amend the documents after the fact. If you are on a custom doc, and I will say too that Fidelity uses for a majority of the plans that we use what we call a volume submitter document, meaning it is a pre-designed form that the Department of Labor and the IRS have already approved, although it does give different options within the document for each plan. And so that process is pretty straightforward. If you're a plan that's gone to a ERISA attorney and created a custom plan document, you will need to check with your ERISA attorney to determine what your steps are there. I can't speak to that specifically. That you may still have the ability to spread that out up through the end of 2021, but we're hearing that custom documents tend to need to be addressed in a quicker fashion.
All right, so let me get this straight. You can take a distribution today, and you have until the end of 2021 to amend your plan docs. Same with the deferral on a loan. But if you haven't offered loans in the past, and you want to offer loans now, we have to get the plan docs amended before you make the loan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
How long does it take? So if we're getting a distribution and we've got a Fidelity account, it can be in the account at the end of the day, or I mean, by tomorrow morning. If we're doing a loan, how long does it take? Let's say we're now set up for a loan. How long does it take to actually get a loan?
24 hours.
24 hours, okay.
That's less.
All right. It's really fast to distribute the money. The only holdup is really whether or not your plan offers loans.
Yeah, these options, all three of these options are options to a plan.
Okay.
And so if you already offer loans, then adding the CARES Act loan piece is very simple, at least from a Fidelity standpoint. If you don't offer the loan, that is where the challenge would be to be able to offer that. The aspect of distribution of funds, whether it be an actual distribution or taking a loan, if you already have loans available, that once that's approved, which is very fast, the money's, again, if you have your electronic funds transfer set up, it's overnight.
Yeah. So as an employer, as the company, you said something interesting the other day about people not allowing loans. Why would a company not allow people to take out loans?
In a general sense or regarding CARES Act?
General sense. Or CARES. I mean.
So there are, because 401s, although there is some standardized structure of a 401, 401s can be tailored for a company by the people that are that plan sponsor or the owner of that company. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting. It is an interesting point, at least in my view, that different people have developed their 401s with different nuances to them. And part of that, in regards to not offering loans or being very restrictive in regards to distributions and things like that, comes from kind of, in my opinion, an old school thought process historically, because more and more we don't see that with newer plans. Historically, with people saying, we can't control what you do with that money, but we're going to control how soon you get it, because this is your retirement plan and we want you to have that money for you when you retire.
Okay.
It's again, that's part of it. I don't know how much validity there is. Well, there is some validity to it. I've worked with people who have taken money out of their plans when they leave a company, and it's gone, you
Yeah.
know, and they buy new cars, new houses, new boats, whatever it may be. And they don't, you know, I'll get another job or I have a new job or I'll get another job or whatever it may be, and I can replace that. Well, the bottom line is you don't actually replace it. If you spend the money, you'll never have that money, the same amount again.
Yeah.
Lost that compounding, as you mentioned earlier, and that can make a difference over time.
All right. All right, so let me do a quick recap and tell me if I have this right. CARES Act gives you 3 options in relation to your 401k or an IRA. The first is you can take a loan. I'm sorry, let me back up. The first is you can get a distribution up to 100% of your vested amount or $100,000, whichever is greater. And that $100,000 limit is across all plans, all IRAs, any retirement funds you have. It is not
Qualified money, correct.
All right. Option 2 is you can defer any existing loan payments you have through the end of this year. In January, the interest will continue to accrue. In January, they will re-amortize the loan. The number of months that you missed your payments on, or that because they aren't technically missed payments, the deferred payments will get tacked on to the end. So your loan will end up, if you defer for 5 months, your loan will be 5 months longer than original. And the third option is to take a CARES Act loan, which is, again, the same 100% or $100,000, 5-year payback. Payments don't start until January. Is that right?
Correct.
And from an employer standpoint, if you already allow loans, there is nothing that you need to do as an employer to allow your employees to do this.
Well, they do have to opt in to the CARES Act.
Have to opt in. Okay, so employers have to opt in. Employees have the responsibility to ask for deferment. Obviously, they're going to ask for the loan or the distribution, but that deferment of existing loans is not automatic. If as an employer you currently don't offer loans, it's going to take probably about 30 days to get that added to your plan. Have I covered everything?
Correct. Yes. Well, and I also want to add a couple of other tidbits that are secondary, I guess, to the access. The CARES Act does affect HSAs, so it particularly gives you additional time for 2019 to add money into your HSA, and it does make some changes to some of the allowable expenses within the HSA. So other than that, it's usually pretty similar.
They extended the payment to July 15th.
July 15th, yes. So you can add.
The IRS has some magic dates. The CARES Act has some magic dates. I still don't know why February 15th is a magic date in the CARES Act, but it is. And as far as the IRS is concerned, July 15th is the new April 15th.
It is. Which, that's all right. I think it's all good intention. There may be some things that may not make sense to some aspects of it. One of the other tidbits is it does give people who are taking a required minimum distribution, so these would be people over 70 and a half, the ability to defer that distribution, or if they've already taken it, to put that money back in if they want to, back into the account. And then the third tidbit is that it does automatically suspend all student debt payments until September 30th.
But you do have to call your lender.
Correct.
And talk to them. Okay, can we go back to the RMDs for a second?
Sure.
So RMDs have to be taken by the end of 2019 calendar year, right?
Unless it's your first one, yes.
Okay. So if you defer your 2020 RMD, your required minimum distribution, or if you've taken it already, you can just put it back. If you don't want to take it, can we basically just wipe the whole year? Like there's no RMD for 2020 period?
Yes, ma'am.
Hot diggity. Totally need to call my parents. They're always annoyed by their RMDs.
Now, I would certainly, a lot of RMDs, if you have participants who don't use those for expenses, there's a lot of different options there. Putting it back in the account is a good option, I think, if you don't need it.
Yeah.
So I think that is a good aspect for those in that position.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Michael, I so appreciate this. I have learned a ton. I learned today, I learned a ton yesterday. So, because we prepped for this. So
Good.
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving options. And as we talked about yesterday, I think the CAF-CAP audience is much more the business owners as opposed to the employees. I think it's those business owners that are looking ahead and saying, what are my options? What can I do? How can I keep my business afloat? How can I keep my employees employed? How can I keep moving forward? And generally, they have a very high risk tolerance. And so pulling money out of their retirement account, they need people like you who are going to go, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, let's talk about this. But they see the investment in their company as an investment in themselves, an investment in the future. So I do think that this is all great information, that there is money that they can pull out. And I think it's great that it's an IRA too. It doesn't have to be a 401k.
Well, and as we discussed yesterday, to be honest with you, I hadn't really thought about the business owner aspect of it from a maintenance of their own business. So, that does present an option for them. So I think now, again, keep in mind that the rules state there has to be the need, that they have to have that financial burden or financial hardship. But organizations like Fidelity are not going to question that. We're not going to, you're self-certifying, so if
You're not
say it is, it is.
You're not going to say, let me see your paychecks pre-coronavirus and now. I want to see your debt. I want to look at your bank balances. No, you've got too much cash. You can't have this.
So, but the reason I bring that up is you do want to be just in the back of your mind that if you're not, and I certainly would, as a business owner, I'd probably want to be talking to my CFO, my consultants, my CPAs, et cetera, to make sure that we're doing this properly. I hadn't, to be honest with you, until we talked yesterday, I hadn't really thought about somebody taking that money and using it in their business. I think it's a great option. I just hadn't. I'm looking more at a different perspective. But I want to make sure that any plan sponsors, they need to talk to their record keeper. They're the groups like Fidelity that are holding their 401s. Make sure they understand those rules. Make sure that their participants within that they have the ability to get that information out to the participants. So I think from a business standpoint, offering these options is a good has a long-term benefit. Yes, it may drain some money out of the 401 initially, but I think it has the ability to say, yes, as a business, we're going to buy into these options and allow you as our employee to help you. And I think there is some employee satisfaction and employee loyalty things that come back in return with that. We've seen some polling that shows some of that. So,
well,
and what the 401 is about to begin with is for to help lure good employees in, if you will. So
yes. So I mean, you keep hearing we're all in the same storm, we're in different boats. I think that understanding what is happening in your employees' world is important. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, your company may not be suffering, or it may be suffering, but your employees aren't feeling it. But that doesn't mean that spouses or other people aren't feeling it. And so, I mean, it's caring about your people and making sure that they have the tools they need to get through this safely. And it may be about you making sure that your company is financially set to get through this. So, all right.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So there's, you know, there are other options available, and I don't mean to drone on too long here, but there are other things like when you do a leave of absence or a furlough, there are options regarding loans that may be just as beneficial as the CARES Act loan deferral piece. So there are some other tools that are available in most 401s based on the rules of the 401 itself. So certainly talk to your administrator. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, what else can I help with?
I think that's it. I think we did a recap, and then we learned even more after the recap, which is great. My parents will be thrilled. My mother just texted me. I wonder if she was watching. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they get you?
My email is michael.freeman@fmr.com.
All right.
And if there's questions, then we can certainly help them out with. If it's something out of my range, I have got a
large company
of support to help with that. So yeah, michael.freeman@fmr.com.
All right. And I think you guys know you can reach me at brooke@cavcap.com. And I do have one last thing to say. On Friday, we are doing a webinar, same time, same bat time, same bat channel. And we're going to be talking about how financial policies can inoculate you against coronavirus. So there you go. Michael, thank you one more time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.